everybody, welcome back to Talking Points of BSDF1. We're going to be talking about today, are the regulations working? What do you think, guys? Do you think these regs are working in 2022 and 3?
Not really.
Racing?
I mean, if it wasn't for Red Bull, then it'd be a lot more interesting.
Do you reckon?
100%.
I don't think it is.
Well, if you look, you've got the first 4 races and you've got Ferrari back up there, well, after Baku. You've got you've got Aston Martin, you've got Mercedes who have been fighting, who have been somewhat close. So, I don't know. I know it seems like it's working for some teams, but clearly not others.
I don't think. I think it is and it isn't at the same time. Like, I think Leo's right with if Red Bull weren't involved, it'd be a closer fight. But the cars that aren't Red Bull are physically closer in terms of pace. But I still don't believe that the regulations have helped the racing. I think it's actually made it slightly worse. And I don't know if that's got to do with cost cap, because maybe people are less likely to throw it up on the inside because they don't want to get damaged, because they know that's put up part of, they've got to pay for that at the end of the day. And where does that money come from? The allocated budget to repairs and stuff. So I don't know if that's involved. And catering, yeah. Well, to be fair, that team doesn't really care for catering and overspending. So, we'll look at the races just gone. In the last 3 have been street circuits, and we've seen quite large incidents, which we might not see at places like Spa or Silverstone, because there is a bit more room. But I think the regulations would work in theory if the cars were lighter and smaller, like we've spoken about on 2 separate talking points.
That's Definitely. A fair point, because 3/4 of the races so far have been street circuits, and this season so far has been horrible. So it's just street circuits. Do give it more time, because the next track is Miami, which is another street circuit.
Another one again,
so it'll be 4 races in a row. It's a street circuit.
Imola's the next actual non-street circuit.
Yeah, but that's tight, though.
For goodness sake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what's after Imola?
It's another
street track.
Monaco.
The hardest one of the
Spain, where we actually get racing. I think.
And then wait, is it Spain after Monaco?
Yeah.
I'm going to start watching the second part of the season.
Well, you got to remember, Spain has had its big update, isn't it? Well, big update. They've got rid of that awful sector 3.
But they're not following as good as everyone else said they were going to.
Yeah, no, I think so. I was going to jump in on something that Josh said earlier about if it wasn't for Red Bull, there would be good racing. I don't think there would be. I think a standout, you can kind of look at like 2020 had good racing-ish every now and again throughout the field, and Mercedes are well away. 2019, 18, 17, since these ridiculously big cars have come in 17 regs. Now it seems like they still can't follow and go wall anywhere. And it's obviously the downforce was the dirty air from the downforce was a problem, but I feel like, and I think everyone can agree here, that it's the size of the cars and the width of the cars and the length of the car, all of it, that's the problem. These new regs didn't solve the actual issue. It's like what we were just saying there. Street circuits are tight, they're windy, exciting and dangerous. Therefore, no one's going to want to overtake because they're tight, windy, dangerous, because their car can't fit around the corner.
Plus, when you think about it, you've got likes of the cars in the 2000s and early 2010s, which are a lot smaller, a lot lighter. I remember seeing this clip. I know it's not a street circuit, but China, for example, there was the last couple of laps in China in 2010 or 12. I can't remember which one it was. And there was 5 cars fighting for second, closely following each other. But then you got street circuits when you have the late 2000 cars flying around Monaco, for example. And then you've got these absolute HGVs going around that can't pass each other.
Literal buses. Bus stop chicane is a new reason at Spa, because they pull up and actually get off. Yeah, no, that's 100%. There's a thing that anyone can do, then listeners at the moment can do, is watch Fernando Alonso's, not a push lap obviously, he's on board from the 2020 season where he's in these old Renault that he won the championship with. Watch him take that around Abu Dhabi, and then watch the Max Verstappen's pole lap in 2020 for Abu Dhabi. I'm pretty sure he got pole. I know he won that race, but
yeah, he did.
But because that was the dark omen of the Red Bull being very quick. But have a look at both of them on boards and just watch how much track Fernando can use and how much his car rotates and how quick it leaves, and take away the fact that it sounds 1 billion times better. But then you go back and look at the Red Bull and it looks, although it looks planted, it's lazy, it's clunky, it's bouncy, it looks slow, even though it obviously isn't. But you look at Fernando's on board on that old Red Bull, the old Renault, and it's just absolutely like rugged on rails, looks amazing, but maybe not on rails, sorry, but looks amazing, like he's proper driving the car. And yeah, there's a lot to say about those, I think. Do you guys think that the 2026 regs, they're allegedly shrinking the cars? I think, I can't remember if I've seen it. Do you reckon that will help big time, or do you think we're still going to get caught with this issue?
I do. If they make them smaller, if they make the cars smaller, the racing can be closer, because there won't be that washout where you're struggling to get round at an apex and there's not enough room to get around, because that racing room would become much more to give and take. And it, because they're so wide and their turning circles are so big, you have to give a bigger apex, which is just, it is what it is at the moment. But I think that the best drivers that will stick around in that time period for those smaller cars, if we see it, then I think it would be improved, personally.
What do you reckon, Leo?
I think the problem is they don't give these regulations enough time. For example, when they switched from the V8 to the V6, you got the hybrid era, they changed some new shaped cars. Obviously, in 2014, you had those cars. You had those shaped cars, smaller ones, lower front nose, for 3 years, and then they changed it again to these bigger cars. And then about 5 or 6 years later, they've then changed to these cars, and in 3 years' time, they now changed them again. For example, 2009, 2013, you had 4 years just those cars, so 5 years of those cars. They don't give these regs enough time. Obviously, when there's problems, you change them, but these cars, I feel like if you give them more time, then it might be closer, because Toto Wolff seems quite confident that he's going to that Mercedes is going to be closer to Red Bull by the end of the season, which I heard this last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
then we got Brazil, and then we got Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I do think it will be closer, but you have to give it time, because look at, for example, Mercedes 2014, silly, right? So yeah, I think if you give it more time, then yeah,
it always seems to happen, doesn't it? Every regulation, somebody gets a jump. And I don't know how Formula One don't kind of predict it happening, because it's bad for the entertainment. It's good for the teams participating to win, but it's bad. The sport only exists because of fans, and if there's not a lot of fans, there's not going to be a lot of sport.
In a perfect world,
it's the only reason they can extend the races out, because of the fans.
In a perfect world, you kind of want every single car to be more or less the same in terms of pace and stuff, but have their own mechanical ways of doing it. So their own engine, their own sort of philosophy on design, but you more or less want them to be in the same.
Like IndyCar, basically.
Yeah, kind of. But the reason why IndyCar kind of sucks is they're more or less the same car throughout.
Swinging statement.
Well, it's true though. No, it's not the same as their Formula One, is it?
How many IndyCar races have you watched?
A big fat 0. Anyway, then there's a reason for that, because it's complete shite. No one wants to watch it because it is just
it's actually really good. I watched Long Beach when it was on last,
don't care.
Of it. Trust me. Give it a watch. Trust me.
My point is that Formula One has. My point is the Formula One has had a tendency to want to do its own thing for a long time with its own regulations, and get the OEMs involved to do their own thing, to show what they can do. But for the benefit of racing and for the fans, you kind of want the whole grid to be exactly the same, just with their own technology and their own ways of doing it. And let the drivers do the talking, because the comments that keep coming up about Max Verstappen and Lewis and even Seb back in the day is it the car or is it the guy or the racer? And you can kind of see that, because you can kind of go, might have been the car, that got him to this point.
It's all that it's
not 2018. Not 2018.
What was called classic. The thing I always look at it's more the car, right? Because Lance Stroll isn't a better driver than Lewis Hamilton, but Lance Stroll could finish higher this year than Lewis Hamilton, but he's not a better driver. The car does. I've always said, and it's such, people will hate me for the take, but it's a proper wild take. 95% car, 5% driver. The car is the thing that gets you over the line. Your foot is what starts the car. You know, you could put anybody in the car and it can drive. The difference, the only time drivers make a difference is when you're in the same car. Red Bull versus Red Bull, Mercedes versus Mercedes, Ferrari versus Ferrari. You can see categorically because they're the same. Setups are different, obviously, but they're the same. And that's when you can see the real difference that those cars will make. The other thing is if you go down the lines of homologation with the cars, it loses Formula One's identity.
Yeah, that's what everybody I'm saying. It shouldn't
be, say that Formula One is about innovation.
It shouldn't be the same design like they do in F2.
No,
that
wouldn't be Formula One. It
wouldn't be Formula One. That's my point. But you almost want the cars to be developed in the same way or same philosophy. Like I get what they tried to do with the design brief they had in 2021, and said, look, this is the regulations, and this is one of the only times where they've open sourced and like created a car and said like, oh, this is the design that we've created as Formula One's engineers, etc. I don't think they've ever done that before. And when it actually came to fruition, they all had the different things, which is great, but you want all of them designs, Williams included, to be like the Red Bull, if you like, because they got it right. So they all can compete within the same like ecosphere.
To jump on top of that briefly as well, why is it that we've only had 3 teams good since, let's say, McLaren last fought for a championship in 2012? So
no, 2010 really.
2010 really properly, yeah. So why is there only been 3 teams in the last 13 years?
It's been for the big 3, especially since 2016, 15, 16, for example. You've always had the big 3 teams, and it's a money thing. And over the years,
right? And this is the problem.
Now, this is what I'm
it is now, yeah.
Now they've had to be like, right, we need the best people in there and all that. So it's who use their money more wisely. And obviously Mercedes and Ferrari use their money more wisely. That's what I'm saying. You can't say Red Bull use their money more wisely because they spend too much on food and nothing else.
John Lewis sandwiches instead of Audi.
No, but all seriousness though, the big 3 teams, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, all, use their budget cap wisely. Whilst the other teams probably not as much.
The only outlier is obviously Aston Martin, where they're the first midfield team to break into a top team.
Yeah,
and
but simply though,
seeing that as it goes on.
What have they got compared to Williams and McLaren?
Big money.
Exactly, yeah.
Unlimited funds. And an entire car company that he bought to put behind the funds. So yeah. But boiling it back down to, are these regulations working? I think we can all categorically say at the moment, no, but there is promise and they just have to keep on building on that promise. And exactly like Leo said, do not jump ship too early because it might not be sinking. It might just be a big wave, So we'd love obviously to know what all you listeners think in the comments. Are these regulations working? Are you enjoying the 22 and 23 cars? I think they're some of the nicest looking cars to look at as cars. Take away the livery. Some of the other cars had too much aero all over them and looked ridiculous, but that also had some appeal. But I think they're nice cars to look at nonetheless. So
you said the 2014 cars weren't nice to look at.
1 foot nose in front. That's what it's about.
Was it a nose?
Big nose. Big cape.
Something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be something else.
Never Blue pill team.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for listening to Talking Points once again. Please let us know what you think in the comments below. Until next time, take care. Goodbye everyone.